So it's day 3 here in the shop, and just kind of a recap of what's gone on so far. Taking the grill off, taking the front off, taking all the hoses loose, taking all the ground straps loose, the fuel line loose, the vacuum hoses, all that stuff. Finished up last night taking the transfer case cables off of the shifter, the bottom of the shifter that comes up into the cab, and basically just got everything loose, got the transmission skid plate off, all that. So we are at the point where I need to take the 4 bolts out of the top of the shift tower, pop the shifter off, so that way I don't have to worry about dropping the shifter or the transmission way down to get the shifter, stick to come out under the Jeep. And then it'll be time to pull the motor out. Kind of went over the plan yesterday on the video of how I think I'm gonna kind of pull it out in a 2-stage ordeal. Pull it forward a little bit, readjust the lift, and then pull it out all together all at once. And yeah, so that's my goal today, is to get this motor and transmission and transfer case out, and then try to make a plan from there. I'll probably take time while I'm at it and everything's kind of out of this area. I'll probably take the time. I'll need to cut the motor mounts off potentially. I guess I could just kind of line it up and see where they land. I might be able to just reutilize those mounts for the LS depending on where my motor sits. So I got that to do. I might go ahead. I haven't fully decided what I'm doing with the wiring, so I don't know if I'll keep that fuse block over there or if I'll get another one, stuff like that. So I might go ahead and redo some of that stuff, or at least pull some of this wiring harness stuff out. I'd kind of like to clean this up a bit while it's apart as far as the electrical side. I've got a lot of stuff that was kind of added on as time went by. So you got the factory stuff, and then I added the ARB compressor down here and its bundle of wiring and hose and all this stuff. Over on the other side, I've got the aux locker actuator cable just kind of zip tied up in here. Obviously it works, it's fine, but while I'm at it, I'm getting things apart and redoing stuff, I might go ahead and try to figure out how to redo that a different way. Another thing that I'd like to do is, while I'm redoing all this stuff or doing all this stuff, is put switches inside the cab for the winch instead of running the remote. I've never even used the winch, but I just kind of like the idea of having the switches inside, and while I'm in there, just being able to push a switch instead of having to run the remote around with a cable, or it's actually a wireless remote. If the battery's charged, I can use it. But anywho, yeah, just stuff like that I want to take care of and kind of clean up as I'm doing all this work. But yeah, the real goal for today is to get the shifter tower off and then pull this setup out, and then we'll see what time it is and what else we can play with today. So here we go. Okay. Gently pull towards you.
Yeah. About to hit the thingy.
Not to hit a thing.
We're not caught on anything.
Okay. All right, so we got the motor transmission transfer case out of the Jeep, and I've measured all sorts of stuff now that it's out, between the motor mounts that are in the frame and the motor mounts that are on the old motor, and motor mounts that are on the new one, and distance from the transfer case, and blah blah blah, all sorts of measurements. And I actually thought I had a plan going, and I thought it was going to be really clever. I thought I was going to be able to line everything up and utilize the existing horns off of the frame to mount the new motor. I was like, cool, this will work out really well. And then I stood back and kind of looked at it and realized that the passenger side horn off of the frame is not the same distance from, say, the firewall as the driver's side. The passenger side is, I think it was about 2¼ inches further back on the frame towards the body than the driver's side. On the LS motor, they are, I believe, right in line with each other or very close to it, if not. So, long story short, gonna have to cut the horns off of the frame, which is fine. You have to for a lot of the kits and anything that I would have used anyway. So, but yeah, this is, like I said, this one is about 2¼ inches further forward on the frame than that one. That one pretty much lined up within about 1/4 inch of where I would have needed to put the mount on the motor, on the new motor. So I thought it was going to be real clever when I was measuring that one out. And then I don't know, ended up looking at the other side of the motor or this or something, and it was like, wait a minute, something's off. So sucks, but whatever. So a couple things that I'm trying to plan through here, now that I have this out and I can kind of see what I'm working with. So this is the connector for my aux locker in the front, and here's the controller for that. It used to, the cable wrapped around and was just kind of free air. It's a real stiff cable, and it basically just kind of rested on the bottom of the oil pan, and then I had the controller mounted up here somewhere on the frame, right there. And it basically just kept a loop here, which, you know, kept this from binding up, and it just rode on the bottom of the oil pan. It might still work that way. The new oil pan is shaped different. The whole bottom of the motor is shaped different, so I'm not 100% sure if it'll still work that way, but if it doesn't, then I might look at moving this somewhere else. I have this brake line. One thing, this was not supposed to stay as a permanent fix, but it's one of those things that got done and stayed for multiple years and just kind of became permanent. But really, I want my brake line to go down and connect to the upper control arm, come down, and then tee off and go out to the ends, and get rid of this line coming up and over and all this junk. So I'll probably take the time to redo that while I have it apart. Let's see. I think I'm like 99% through my thought process on this part, but I think I actually want to remove this. All this wiring, the computer, all of this wiring will come out and go with the old motor and transmission. Let's see, this is going to come out because this is for the cruise control, and the new motor and transmission won't use this cruise control setup. So that's going to be coming out. All this wiring harness here will come out. This will come out because this was for the clutch. We're going automatic. Yeah, and then basically it all feeds through this big plug, and then on the inside there's a big connector, and I'm not really sure how exactly I want to go about things once I get to that connector. I really don't want to cut that connector apart because of potentially wanting to gut all the dash wiring out and use it in the scrambler when I put all this in. So I think what I might do is see if somebody's parting out a Jeep or something like that, and see if I can get just like the plug, the connector with this plug, and then maybe like 6 inches of wire coming out here, and then I can pretty much just make my own setup. You know, I can make a fuse block and relay block and all that stuff, and just make my own system to do all that. So I think that might be what I do for that. Like I said, I'm 99% of the way through these thought processes, so I'm sure these plans will change as I go along and actually do things, but that's the idea so far. So let's see. The other thing that potential spam. The other thing that I started looking at, if I could get over the lift arms, is in here. So I have this big hole now, and I was trying to come up with different ideas on what I wanted to do as far as covering this hole and you know, my shifters and all that. So I looked online and started looking at like homemade center consoles, and actually a few pictures popped up of a center console that Genrite makes. It's a beautiful piece. It's an aluminum piece. It looks real nice and fancy. It actually looks like it would be exactly what I'm after. Unfortunately, from, you know, me, it's $650 for that thing. So I think I will probably do something along the lines of that kit, but make it myself and you know, save some money. So I have the Sidewinder automatic transmission, you know, gated shifter for the transmission. I have my 2 levers for the Atlas. I think what I'm gonna do is basically have like a, you know, 2 side panels here, and then it'll kind of angle up. I'll see if I can put a photo of what I'm gonna explain here in the chat, in the video, but it's gonna kind of angle up. The shifter will mount in this general area. These shifters will move back here, kind of in between the seats. A couple cup holders probably further back this way, and then what I would kind of like to do is make the back tall enough and like big enough to put a small subwoofer in it. I do like music when I'm driving and whatever, and I would really like to have like a nicer sounding stereo in this thing. You know, factory, it's got some odd small speakers in the dash. I've put 5 1/4s in the dash now. I forget what they came with originally, but, and then you know, there's a couple speakers back there in that bar behind the windjammer, but basically all I get to hear are these 2 5 1/4 speakers. So I'm thinking I might try to do a little sub here. My brother actually just not too long ago got an LJ with a subwoofer in the center console, and it's not overwhelming, but it does just give it a little bit more bass to make it, you know, sound better. So little sub there, and then I'm thinking maybe like up on the sides here, do some cutouts and like some 6 1/2s. I don't need anything like super loud or whatever, just, you know, I like a little music while I'm driving, and I like it to sound good. So yeah, that's the thought. You know, there's gonna be some fabrication in here. I actually cut the floor and like made some stuff to mount these shifters, so I'm gonna have to cut all that back out and kind of reshape the floor back down, and then I'll have to make all of this center console stuff. But oh, and then I have these switches. Let's see, I got the ARB pump, the ARB locker, and then the aux locker up front. I think when I build my center console ordeal, it's probably going to come up in this area, and I'll probably just move those switches to the center console. I originally had a plan to do a full cage, which I'm still going to do eventually, but I was going to run some parallel bars and then put like a switch panel between up here and run my switches up here. But if I make the center console, I can kind of make a little area for switches off to the side and just have those guys there, and that'll give me a lot better wiring, because the wiring that I had to do for these is all shoved and crammed up behind this, and That's probably why these don't work half the time, because they're all jumbled up in there. But anyway, so yeah, that's where we're at. Just trucking along. I also have been kind of contemplating the idea of, I don't know if I've mentioned this, but cutting this section of the floor out. This is where we extended it to do the TJ6 15-inch extension, and you can kind of see right there, it actually looks like a shadow. It is a shadow, but right there by that shadow is where we cut at the front, and then we spliced in 15 inches of steel here. I'm thinking I might cut all this out and pretty much just make it flat from this bed area the whole way up through here to the back, kind of like the back of the Scrambler. Originally, when I did this stretch, I had the idea of keeping the back seat in it and trying to retain as much room as possible in this thing. So that's why I kept this kind of dipped out area, and whatever, I wanted to keep as much square footage in here, or cubic footage, I guess, in here as possible. But in all reality, as I've used this thing since we've done this stretch, this area really sucks to try to do anything with. You slide stuff in from the back and it just kind of falls down in this hole because of these. This is where the control arms come up. We did these upward indents, outdents, so that the control arms wouldn't hit the body, and where they are, and then the center hump, like you can't sit anything here flat because of this. So I've thought about it multiple times over the past couple of years actually, and I might go through the effort of cutting this section of floor out, making that flat the whole way across, and then kind of I've almost thought about doing a bulkhead. Now that I own the Scramblers, I've almost thought about doing a bulkhead kind of like they have, but I'm not really sure if I'll do like a full, like, you know, body height wall and make this like a truck bed, or if I'll just kind of do a little lip so that stuff doesn't slide up under there. I'm not really sure yet, but that's the idea. Opening this from the underside, like, you know, cutting this out, raising this up, giving me more space from the underside will also give me more room for like the mufflers and exhaust and things like that that I now have to push up this way and get out of this area because I'm putting the fuel tank back here. So a lot of work. Gonna try to keep moving on it, hopefully move faster than I am on the Willys. The Willys just kind of stalls out on me. I'm not a body guy really. I would much prefer to do motor swaps and metal fabrication and things like that rather than sand down a body and find a good day to prime it outside and then another good day to paint it and have to suit up and respirator and all that stuff so I don't die. Like, I'd rather be doing this honestly. So and also I drive this all the time and I don't drive the Willys. So yeah, gonna keep working on this, try to get it done quickly, but you know, good but quickly. All right, sorry about that. Battery died in the GoPro, but like I said, I pulled the fuse block, pulled all the wiring for it the whole way around here. Right now it's just kind of draped over the fender here, laying on the ground, because I need to get up under the dash and pull that plug so I can get the rest of it out. But this is what we have to work with. Like I said, I still got to pull the clutch pedal stuff. I am leaving the charcoal canister ordeal. I do want to retain the gas tank purge system, so I figure I'll just try to use this. And yeah, I don't know if I'll keep it here. I might end up swapping it over there to that side, because I might end up putting the fuse and relay block on this side. The battery is over there, but the alternator on the LS is on this side. All the wires go through here on the driver's side. My relays that I need up front for like the headlights and stuff like that, all the wires come in on this side. So I might end up moving this over there and put my fuse stuff over here. One of those things that just gonna have to figure it out as we go. I told you all that I'm pulling all this wiring out, but I didn't really say why. My idea is to essentially create a new wiring harness for this Jeep, at least, well, probably the whole way through, honestly. But I have, like I said earlier, you know, the main wiring harness, and then I had added on, and I got wires here and wires there. I pretty much want to just kind of start over and create a wiring harness for this Jeep that has all of these extra things incorporated into it. That's why I'm gonna have to get everything in and figure out like where I want this, because if this moves from here to back there, then I want my wiring harness to have it drop out back there instead of up here. Things like that, we'll have to figure out. But all in all, you know, pretty straightforward project here. Let's see, I feel like there was something else I wanted to mention, but I do not recall what it, oh, this. So another thing that I'm gonna have to figure out is a new steering ordeal here. I more than likely would have to change things anyway for the exhaust on the LS, but until it's in here, I don't know that for sure. But at one point this had a body lift only an inch, so I could do some belly up stuff, and things have just changed and changed and changed over the years. So it actually still has some of that body lift, and in some places it doesn't. But anyway, so got a body lift and motor mount lifts and stuff like that. But and then this box got rotated from its, you know, really angled position to flat and more forward. And when something happened, I don't know which, but probably when I rotated this box, honestly, this shaft started hitting the frame rail. You can see where it's rusty right there, where it rubbed the paint off. It wasn't hitting it super hard, but it apparently was hitting it hard enough. Instead of wearing this joint out, it seems to have worn out the inner splines on this connector, because this connector is super loose and like slides back and forth and stuff like that. So I'm gonna have to fix this steering shaft. The other thing is, not too actually too long ago, I put in this lift bracket. It extends, it lifts that thing up about an inch from factory, and I did that to clear this so it would stop rubbing the frame, but it's a really steep angle on that, or a really shallow angle, I guess I should say. And now like that rubber boot up in the firewall is wearing out, and it squeaks and drives me nuts. So all that said, I'm gonna have to redo this whole steering arm, which, like I said, I probably was gonna have to do anyway for getting around the LS and the exhaust and all that. So not a huge deal, just something else we got to do. So that's going to wrap it up for today. Gotta get cleaned up and take care of some stuff and go off and have fun tonight. So just gonna leave it here for the evening, but we are still chugging along. We're coming into the weekend here, and I think my goal for the weekend is gonna be to probably bend this out of the way because I'm gonna redo it anyway. And then I might try to get those horns chopped off, not cleaned up, just chopped off and make some room, and try to get that setup pushed in here to just start mocking up and seeing where it'll sit and stuff like that. I don't know if I'll get that far, and even if I do, it's definitely going to be coming back out because I'm going to have to clean everything up and make mounts and all this stuff. So it's not going to be a permanent thing, but I would really love to put that motor in here and start seeing where exactly it'll sit and all that good noise. So fingers crossed, that's what we'll see in the next few days.